with some greetings. We want to welcome you from the virtual and physical campuses of Wharton Executive Education and the Wharton School. And we're going to spend some time talking about the M&A and Corporate Development Strategies program as part of Wharton Executive Education. So we will get started. In fact, we'll get started just about right now. So again, to those who are just joining, we want to welcome you. And we're so thrilled to have you with us here today. This webinar is being recorded, so for those watching on the recording, we want to extend our heartfelt welcome to you as well. And for those watching live, the recording will be distributed within 24 hours, and you can certainly request a copy of slides from that email as well. So again, the slides and recording will be available to you. And for those watching on the recording already, we want to wish you our greetings as well, wherever you are. We're currently joined here by a truly global group, as evidenced by the chat. As I said, I think we have a good, let's see, I think 5 continents represented. One of these days, we're going to get an Antarctica contingent from a research laboratory, and we're going to hit all 7. But right now, we generally hover between 5 and 6 per call. A bit of housekeeping as well. If you're on the live version and you have questions, feel free to use the Q&A button. And again, if you have any questions, comments, feedback, anything you'd like a response, feel free to use the Q&A button. It keeps the things from getting lost in the chat flow. So again, well, a final welcome aboard. We continue to have people trickling in, and we're thrilled to have you here. We also want to be respectful of those of you who've been with us since the top of the hour. We appreciate your patience, and we will get started. I'm honored to be joined today by the founding faculty director of the M&A program, Emily Feldman. Professor Feldman is a full-time tenured professor at the Wharton School, professor of management at the Wharton School, with extensive experience teaching MBA students, undergrad students, executive MBA students, and mid to senior executives such as yourselves. So we're thrilled to have Professor Feldman over, and I will turn it over to her in a few minutes as we walk through not only her background and connection to this course topic, but also our coaching team or our program leadership team and our and the curriculum itself. I'm Dave Paritsky. I'm VP of Strategic Partnerships at Emeritus. The way, for those of you unfamiliar with partnerships, when business schools will offer courses and programs such as this, they often do so with the help of a delivery partner. So Emeritus handles the participant enrollment and delivery mechanics and support. Wharton is responsible for the teaching, the learning, the content, the certificate, and the overall program. So we're pleased to work in a supporting role here with the Wharton School. It's a 10-year-old partnership, and it's been a lot of fun. I should say that Professor Feldman is also the noted author of the book. You may have seen it, called Divestitures, which I believe was published 2 years ago, and is certainly widely appreciated by M&A advisors everywhere. And I suspect that some of that content will make its way into the programs and discussions. A bit about what we're going to cover today. We'll have a brief mention of Wharton, and specifically Wharton Executive Education, and then we will take a dive into the program and looking at the 6-week structure of this program and some of the features and benefits attached to the program. And then I'll turn it over to Professor Feldman, who will talk about her own background in the curriculum in a bit more detail. A little bit about who this program is aimed at, and then again, just a brief mention of nitty-gritty items like finance options. Again, questions welcome at any time. We're happy to take a stab. Again, you can we will do our best to interrupt when we can. We'll also leave some time at the end for questions. So again, a final welcome aboard. We have some folks who've just joined us in the last minute or two. We appreciate you taking the time, and a heartfelt greeting to all on the call. Wharton is widely known not only as one of the leading, if not the leading, business school in the world. It was also the first dedicated business school, and it was created in the late 19th century, essentially as a way to make what was then the powerhouse industry of the United States, the U.S. steel industry, work better and faster and with more efficiency, and essentially finding ways to integrate the best of academia onto the factory floor. And that ethos of combining, of that applied learning framework, combining the best of the academic, financial, and corporate or organizational worlds, has remained a big part of the business school's DNA, not just for the Wharton School, but for all top leading business schools. Wharton Executive Education similarly emerged over the last several decades as a way to bring those teachings to people who were later on in their careers, recognizing that sometimes when we need the knowledge most is when we are involved in a particular area, and we may not have the time or wherewithal to be taking time off and going back to grad school or undergraduate. At the same time, the teachings remain lifelong and important. And Wharton Executive Education, indeed, is one of the leading executive education, if not the leading executive education programs in the world. And with that, we're pleased to have this as one of the newest flagship programs of Wharton Executive Education is our M&A program. So as we look at M&A and corporate development strategies, what are we talking about here? This is a 6-week journey. Each week there will be office hours with a program leader. So this is a self-paced program, meaning that each week you'll have a batched release of an academic module on the learning management system or on the learning platform. You'll be 45 to 60 minutes of recorded videos, as well as assignments, cases, frameworks, additional readings, et cetera, all contained within the module. You can engage with it at your own time. We usually say we look at 4 to 6 hours of learner effort per week. It's the average learner in the average week, and we know there's no such thing as average, but it's a good guideline in terms of allotting time in your busy schedule, whether you're absorbing materials on a commute, during lunch, during an evening, maybe taking a couple of hours on a weekend to dig a little bit deeper. Again, the idea of self-paced learning is designed to integrate with your busy lives. And at the same time, there'll also be a weekly office hours with a program leader. We have one of our program leaders featured on this on this presentation as well, and we'll show you his biography. And you'll also have a live session with Professor Feldman. You'll have a 60-minute live online session where you can come with questions and discussions, and there'll be a chance to interact and be in an online classroom setting. So really, it's a hybrid learning experience in the sense that you'll have your asynchronous or self-paced learning coupled with the live online office hours and the live online faculty session. You'll see that, again, one of the benefits of having a group experience like this is that you do get a chance to meet and network with a community of other learners as the cohorts get underway. A cohort can vary in size, anywhere from a few dozen to over 100 people in a cohort. And the idea is that it's large enough to give you a bit of a network effect as you join, and small enough that as you go to the same sessions or as you participate on a week-to-week basis, you'll start to see some familiar faces and perhaps get to know others along the way. The learning journey, again, we talk about, it's really a 6-week experience, and it is that combination of self-paced learning where you can come together online for office hours or during that faculty session without taking scheduled time or much scheduled time away from your day jobs, and not just your day jobs, but your responsibilities that you may have outside of the workplace too. Again, executive education, it's designed with the twin pillars of rigor and flexibility in mind. The rigor you might expect from a course like this at Wharton, coupled with the flexibility that you need given where you are in your careers. So with that, I am pleased to turn this over to our esteemed professor, Emily Feldman. Again, in addition to what's listed here in our biography, again, I do want to make mention, one, not just of the Divestitures book, which you can certainly find online in many sources, but also her many teaching awards and just the sheer popularity that she enjoys on campus and being able to lend that energy and spirit to an executive program. So Professor Feldman, we appreciate all the time you've put into building and structuring and developing this program, and as well as all the sessions that you'll be experiencing with the students. So I will happily turn it over to you, Emily.
Thanks, Dave. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It's so nice to be here with you today to discuss this program. So I've really valued the partnership with Emeritus. As some of you might know, I'm the academic director of the Global C-Suite program as well, which is one of the flagship programs that we at Wharton run in combination with Emeritus. And I was so excited when I was given the opportunity to develop this elective class on mergers and acquisitions, which is used kind of as part of the Global C-Suite program, but also as a freestanding course that learners can opt into. Particularly excited because this is basically my entire area of research and teaching. So I've been at Wharton for 15 years now. I teach the flagship Mergers and Acquisitions class to our MBA and executive MBA population, as well as many different flavors and variations of corporate strategy and transactions and governance classes to audiences throughout the school and executive audiences as well. So we can go to the next slide. And what I'd like to do for a few minutes here is first of all, kind of talk about kind of how we have this partnership with these program leaders as part of the learning journey, and then say a little bit more about the curriculum that I designed and put together here for this program. So this is one of our program leaders, Stephen. I think we're in our third cohort now. He's been the program leader in two of them, if I'm not mistaken. So this is just a great resource, I think, that learners can have access to throughout the program in terms of reinforcing content in the program itself and the asynchronous portion of the program itself, having the opportunity to kind of ask questions and bounce real world ideas off of, and just really just having kind of a facilitator to drive connections and conversations among the cohorts. So it's been a real pleasure to work with Stephen and others who have filled this role in the different cohorts. But this is really kind of an integral part of the way that we structure the program. And as Dave mentioned, there's also kind of a live session with me for each of the cohorts. So it's not just the program leader, but there's also kind of synchronous interaction with me as the faculty member as part of this program too. So, if there's concerns about just sitting behind a computer, right, I think that this is a broader learning experience than and watching videos. This is a broader learning experience than just that is how I would put it. So let me say a little bit more about the academic curriculum, because I think that this is the real heart and soul of the program. And I really put like a ton of time and energy into kind of crafting this program and developing content that was, specifically relevant to this group. So I'm excited to share a little bit about what I was thinking and kind of my ideas here in terms of why I did what I did in this structure. So the program consists of 6 modules. Dave mentioned that it's a 6-week program, so each module gets a week. And so I think, my own personal worldview is that it's hard to understand M&A in a vacuum, and you really need to understand it as part of a broader suite of strategies that companies can select from in terms of different approaches that they might have to both external partnerships as well as internal efforts that they might be pursuing. So Module 1 really embodies the spirit of what I just said in terms of making sure that you are selecting the right corporate development strategy to match the objectives that you're trying to achieve, as well as mitigate risks that your business or your company might be encountering. So we actually start with totally non-transactional part of the story. We actually think about organic growth first and try to understand the value of just pursuing initiatives internally without any kind of external partnerships. But then we kind of expand from there into less to more intensive ways of working with other companies. So thinking about alliances and joint ventures, thinking about outsourcing relationships, thinking about corporate venture capital and minority investments, and then finally, thinking about M&A as just one of the options that a company might be able to choose from in terms of being able to drive this kind of external partnerships. So that's Module 1, all about corporate development strategies. Module 2 then says, okay, so now understanding this broad backdrop, of corporate development, can we take a deeper dive into the different flavors of mergers and acquisitions in terms of different ways that companies might approach working with other companies. So, for example, I talk about horizontal mergers and acquisitions, where the name of the game is thinking about some kind of intra-industry target, right? That sort of has an adjacency, perhaps, to what the company is doing, versus vertical mergers and acquisitions, where there is some kind of supply chain relationship, right? Either customers or suppliers, right? And sort of thinking through when it might be advantageous to vertically integrate. Versus globalizing mergers and acquisitions, and understanding both the perils and the promise of kind of going cross-border and seeing sort of what happens from that perspective. And finally, thinking about diversification, right? And sort of understanding what it means and when it might be desirable versus undesirable to do mergers and acquisitions outside of the core industry that you participate in. So again, really trying to develop kind of a comprehensive framework for thinking about the different types of strategies that a company might pursue. And then, of course, the implications that carries for target selection in terms of which kinds of targets you think about, and value creation, right? Sort of how do you think about the relative magnitude of value creation from each of these different types of strategies. So modules 1 and 2 are very much about kind of the strategy aspect, right? How do you set strategy? How do you think about strategy? Modules 3, 4, and 5 are more about tactics of mergers and acquisitions, is the way that I would put this. So module 3 is all about conducting due diligence, right? And sort of thinking through the ins and outs of this very important part of the M&A process, right? So one important distinction that I want to draw here is between sort of plain vanilla due diligence, sort of the kick the tires type mentality. Are we getting what they say we're getting, basically, is sort of the thought process there, versus thinking about using due diligence strategically and trying to understand how that might set up the company for opportunities for success, both within a particular deal in question, as well as maybe future opportunities, right? So I think that distinction is an important one, and a really novel way of thinking about due diligence that is unique to me and my experience with M&A. And the companies that I've worked with. So that's really the point of module 3. Module 4, as I said, kind of continuing in the vein of tactics, here we really get into the nitty-gritty, right? So one key theme is going to be target selection, right? How do you identify an appropriate target? How do you think about conducting needs assessment within the organization? How do you conduct a comprehensive assessment of what core capabilities and competencies your company has, and then match that to what potential targets might be able to provide in terms of filling the gaps within your organization? So this is really all about kind of that connection of target selection. But then from there, having identified the right target, it becomes imperative to think about synergy generation, as well as potential dyssynergies that might result from deals, right? So understanding value creation in a more granular fashion, as well as value destruction, right, is kind of another point of this module. And then, the last step is kind of linking that to valuation and pricing and bidding, right? So making sure that, having correctly identified the right target, having correctly identified and accurately valued the synergies that you are projecting, how do you think about this in terms of the price that you should pay for a deal in question, as well as how do you avoid common pitfalls in terms of the bidding and negotiation process, right? So that's kind of a key theme here. One thing I do want to emphasize in Module 4 is that this is really a strategy program. It's not a finance program. So I think that that's something that bears mentioning, in the sense of saying, I'm not going to stand there and try to teach you how to value M&A targets, but I am going to teach you how to think about and use the numbers strategically, right? So I think that that's kind of a key point that's worth noting here in Module 4. Module 5 is, sort of the last logical step in the M&A process in terms of thinking about how do you do post-merger integration and how do you execute deals effectively, right? And so we all, have the war stories and the bruises and cuts from, failed post-merger integration, right? That's a very common theme that you'll hear if you talk to an M&A practitioner, right? And so, trying to systematically understand the right way to craft post-merger integration strategy and how to think about implementing that effectively is the point of Module 5. And so Dave correctly assumed that I would be talking about divestitures in this program. And so, that's really the heart of Module 6, right? So sort of taking insights from my book and from my experiences advising companies and clients on these transactions, basically trying to unpack how do you think about divestiture strategies? Like when should you think about divestitures as a tool that as a tool that companies should use in terms of its corporate development repertoire. How should you structure divestitures to generate the maximum value from them, right? So setting them up for success. And finally, kind of in the spirit of implementation, how do you think about extracting value and maximizing value from these transactions? So it's a great module. Obviously, I'm quite passionate about that topic, about all the topics, but maybe especially so that one, given the book and everything that I've worked on. So it's nice to have the opportunity to share a little bit of the thought process there on divestitures. And so that's the curriculum that we go through in terms of the 6 modules. Just to highlight a couple of frameworks and tools that I offer in the various modules. And of course, you will get a lot more details about all of these as if you choose to enroll and kind of go through the course. But the very basically named ABC tests, right, in terms of how should you think about industry attractiveness, how should you understand competitive advantage, and how should you understand pricing, right, in terms of the decision to engage in mergers and acquisitions. How do you know whether a target is going to make you better off, and should you actually pursue M&A as the appropriate strategy? Or might other corporate development strategies be more appropriate in terms of thinking about generating value from that relationship? Of course, as I mentioned, modules 3, 4, and 5, thinking about M&A deal making and sort of tactics there, as well as due diligence, and then of course post-merger integration, right? So all of these are kind of frameworks that are very consistent with the modules that I just described. I think I'll turn it back over to Dave here to talk about participant profiles. I think at least from my perspective, I would rank the course as kind of intermediate to advanced, right? I don't know that it's kind of basic mergers and acquisitions, but at least sort of having some knowledge, right, of these kinds of transactions, but really sort of looking to upskill and trying to develop that muscle, right, if you will, for mergers and acquisitions. And yes, you're correct. Valuation is an incredibly important part of mergers and acquisitions. It's not captured in this program. I'm a strategy professor. I'm not a finance professor. I also think that there are investment bankers who probably could do a better job of teaching valuation than I could, right? So I really focus on my area of expertise, which is the strategy behind mergers and acquisitions, and not the finance part of it. So I do want to be transparent about that. That is just the way that the program was structured. So please, others, if you have questions, feel free to ask them in the chat or the Q&A. I'm happy to answer that. And otherwise, I'll turn it back over to Dave here to talk about participant profile. Oh, I see I do have one more. Martin, thanks for the question. Yes, thank you. So how do I connect the finance and the strategy in this program? So yeah, I think that's more in the spirit of what I'm trying to do here, right? So sort of saying like, we know that finance is a valuable input into this program, right? There are techniques and tactics that investment bankers would use to value synergies. And my point is to say, okay, so given these finance inputs, how can we actually use them to understand the strategy, right? So the best example would be synergies, right? So sort of saying, okay, so here's sort of the tactical way that a banker might value synergies. My point is then to say, how do we think about using that as a means of looking at whether a deal is likely to generate value for the overall organization and advance its strategy, right? So that would be my contribution along that dimension. All right, let me pass it back over to Dave here to talk about the participant profile.
Sure, and we have some terrific questions that are also starting to pile up, which is terrific. So we are going to continue to answer and address those questions. And one of the beauties of having an interactive webinar is that we did veer off in a great direction, which is this notion of strategic and financial components of an M&A transaction. I suspect that will come up. Not only in this discussion, but in some of your weekly discussions. In other words, you may have a deal that makes sense financially that doesn't make sense strategically, or vice versa. And again, how do you connect those? So I will let Professor Feldman address some of these questions in a moment, but just briefly on participant profile. Again, M&A is part of so much of today's organizations and companies of all different shapes and sizes. So people are going to be coming to this program from various verticals and parts of companies. They may be doing it in-house in large organizations. They may be advisors and consultants themselves. They may be working and just wanting to gain exposure or credibility on the small business level as well. So again, regardless of what side of the transaction is on, this notion of taking a deeper dive into M&A strategy. We do talk about work experience. We do want people with at least 5 years of work experience, just because we think you would benefit most from the program. If you have less than 5 years of work experience, we suspect that it might not be the perfect fit for you. So you might want to wait a couple of years. And then the upper end, there is no upper end. We have a suggested range, but again, we welcome people of all experience levels. And the course right now is conducted in English. Conversational English is just fine. Again, the assignments are not meant to test your Shakespearean language skills, but rather to just be able to communicate and engage in a discussion with your colleagues and to absorb the materials on the video. You do get a certificate upon successful completion of the program, which means engaging with the videos, doing the assignments. The live sessions are technically optional, although they do tend to lead to a higher satisfaction and engagement level. But you will receive your certificate having engaged with the program and completed the weekly assignments. It's essentially a pass-fail program, as is most of executive education. And the world of certificate education has evolved considerably over the last 10 or 20 years, and specifically over the last 5 to 10 years, that with the proliferation of online programs. And so really, as a more focused way to take a deeper dive into M&A strategy, especially given the time and the investment you're going to be putting in, you're really seeing a renewed popularity toward this channel. So a bit of a recap. Again, these twin pillars of rigor and flexibility. So you're getting the rigorous elements of a business school program, a top business school program, with all of the elements therein, again presented in a flexible format for you to digest while going about your busy lives, and that's important. We have to have that institutional respect for your time and needs as well. In terms of financing, again, when many people are sponsored by their employers or it's part of an education budget allocation, we can provide the supporting documentation as needed. For those who are self-paying, there are payment plans available, as well as group enrollment benefits. We often will get people taking this in small groups within companies, especially when you're dealing with companies with potential financings on the horizon. It's always nice to have a study partner built in, and so you can engage with the program. There is a link in the chat where you can schedule a call with a program advisor. You can also use the QR code that's here. You can also simply respond to the email that you use to enroll in this webinar. Either way, that'll get you to the same place. That gets you to the program advisory desk with a team of enrollment advisors who focus on this particular program. So again, we welcome you to any of those channels. Will get you to the same place. And while we have that, and there's also there's I guess we're enjoying our QR codes these days. We have the QR code to schedule the call, and then there is a LinkedIn group where we have the occasional postings on the program itself. So with that, I want to turn it back over to Emily, and we can read some of these questions out. There are questions in both the chat and the Q&A. So I will just answer one question from Martin here, which is on the structural element, and then I'll turn it over to you for some of the more substantive questions on the program. Martin says, I'm very interested in connecting with peers to the program. That means people that are attending the course and have attended program in the past. Are there structured networking activities, events, or follow-up forum that would allow us to engage meaningfully? It's a great question. And I will say, when you're dealing with an online certificate or an online course like this, there are opportunities. They're somewhat limited. So when you are in a cohort, again, showing up for an office hours or connecting to a live faculty session, or perhaps through others posting on LinkedIn, we often have conversations that arise. In terms of formal networking activities, those are generally limited to the more involved programs. There are year-long certificate programs, and then there are also of which this program is actually an elective course, so it can be integrated into a larger program, or the degree program track. So, and because people are busy and not everybody has the same appetite for engagement and networking, so we appreciate that is, and people do tend to find each other, again, either within cohorts or online. A lot of times when people are getting their certificates, they will post it, and then they can connect with one another. And people also often enroll in other programs and consultations. So there are networking, but I also I want to be very transparent. It's not built in or formal to the extent you might suggest in your question. So I don't want to make a promise that the program can't keep. As I said, definitely a chance to meet other people along the way in your cohort, often with engagement opportunities beyond that. Emily, I know there's some great questions on the substance of the program, so I'll turn it over to you to pick and choose, and I'm happy to help out here in the background.
Sure. Thanks so much, Dave. Yeah, and I appreciate all the engagement and the questions here from the participants in the call today. So I guess I'll just pick up where I left off here in the chat, and then I'll turn to the Q&A. So Rod, thanks for the question. So my definition of accretive, I guess, would be the standard one of a deal that enhances a buyer's EPS, right? So that's kind of the definition. I do want to reemphasize that this is not a finance program, right? So I don't talk about this as kind of a key area of focus in the course itself. So appreciate the question, just as a vehicle to kind of clarify areas of focus here in terms of the program itself. Alessandro, do I think that the cases are obsolete? Given the fast-changing environment that we live in. So the program was designed and put together this summer, so I don't know that obsolete would be the word that I would use necessarily. I tried to be really selective about companies and deals that I knew and had experience in. And obviously, this is an ever-changing program, right? So it gets updated, and new examples are added, right? And especially with the learning coach, right, of kind of weekly sessions, there's opportunities to talk about ongoing deals, right? The great thing about mergers and acquisitions is that they're constantly happening, right? You can pick up the Wall Street Journal any day of the week and read about another deal that's going on, right? So I think that even if the specific examples that were flagged on the slide a few minutes ago, sort of aren't the latest and greatest, right? I think that there are those opportunities to kind of connect to kind of ongoing deal making there. So that's what I would say in response to that question. And I'll kind of link this to Carolyn's, even though it's kind of a question down here. Why have I not selected any large global gaming companies for an M&A case study? Yeah, I mean, I think there are many great examples of this. One of the groups in my MBA class is actually studying one of these companies in their final group projects. So again, I mean, I just think that there are opportunities to engage on examples beyond the ones that were kind of listed on the slide there. And especially through the individual assignments that are required throughout the course, right? One of the big assignments actually is to say, pick a deal, pick a company, right, and analyze it through the lens of the frameworks that we are covering in the program. So if this is an industry or these are companies that are of interest to you, then that could certainly provide a great type of context to study for the individual assignments. Gilberto, thank you for the question. So no, this is not a legal program. It's not a tax program. As I've said, I'm a strategy professor. So, I kind of touch on some of these issues around tax and kind of structuring questions, especially in the divestiture side of the program, but it's not kind of a primary area of focus in the material that I've put together. Brittany, thank you for flagging this. And Dave kind of mentioned as well. I really appreciate this suggestion. So the FVMA program is actually, and CFI are great resources for kind of valuation related programs. And this is sort of one of the realities of mergers and acquisitions. You can take different approaches to it. You can teach it in a law school. You can teach it in a strategy department. You can teach it in a finance department. And there's different ways of slicing and dicing it. So I appreciate your calling out kind of a finance resource for those who are interested in that particular aspect of the program. Stephen, I think this is the next one that I see here. If the main concentration is related to due diligence, will other modules support this activity? Stephen, yes, absolutely. One of the big points of the course actually is that all of the phases of the M&A process actually are and need to be deeply connected to one another in order for companies to drive value. And one of the points that I make throughout the program is that when tasks like due diligence are disconnected from other aspects of the M&A process, that's a lot of times when we end up seeing problems arise in the M&A process and value being destroyed from these deals, right? So I think that the other modules will certainly support a learner, even if their specific area of interest is in due diligence. So I think I've covered everything in the chat here because I see that Dave has answered some of the more tactical questions around timing and such. So let me turn for a minute to the Q&A here. And answer some of these questions here. So, anonymous attendee, we're on the small end of the SME spectrum. Would the program have benefit for smaller scale operations? So, yes, I think so. I mean, it's interesting. So, as I mentioned, we've been through 3 cohorts now, and so. Having had many conversations with participants from these different cohorts, what I've seen actually is a huge range of organization sizes, right? So this is not a program that's geared only at big companies or only at small companies. And I do think that in the spirit of upskilling, right, and being able to maybe learn from companies of different sizes, this is actually a great opportunity to be able to get that exposure that you might not get if you were solely to focus on sort of the companies that are in your size end of the spectrum. So I think I view it as an opportunity from that perspective. So thanks for that question. Nirmal, thank you for the question. Yeah, so is it possible to include pharma and biotech industries in case studies as well? So again, the case studies were chosen and they are what they are. As I mentioned, there's certainly opportunities to explore other industry context and other deals beyond just the examples that were listed on the slide there. So I think that this is something that you'll definitely have the opportunity to look at. Anonymous attendee, do I face in the course how to find the right investor? So this is not a primary area of focus, right? So I'm thinking primarily around sort of corporate deal making, and so sort of investor selection is not really a key area of focus for the course. If you mean something specific, I'm happy to answer that differently. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing some part of this question that wasn't necessarily clear. Dave, what have I missed? Have I gotten everyone here?
First of all, that was about the best lightning round I've seen in a long time. So thank you. Please take a breath and thank you. Martin has a follow-up question over in the chat, and I'll read it out loud. What would you say is the primary reason a banker should consider joining this course, given the volatility in today's M&A market? How does your program equip bankers with the strategic insights or skills that are uniquely relevant to their work in deal making or corporate development?
Yeah, no, thank you. And Martin, I really appreciate this because I actually think that this again kind of strikes at the spirit of what I'm trying to accomplish, right? So I think that strategy and finance and law are, integrally intertwined, and I think that the fields are too siloed, right? And so I think that, for a banker who has that extensive finance experience, understanding understanding what strategy is, right? And sort of having that as a baseline and then being able to effectively advise clients by linking strategy to finance and vice versa, finance to strategy. Is a skill that not every banker has, right? And so I'm not trying to sell anything here, right? But I think that that ability to kind of connect to an area that others in that profession might not necessarily know that much about or care that much about, I view as kind of a competitive advantage. And I will tell you, like I said, I've been teaching mergers and acquisitions here at Wharton in the MBA program for 15 years, and I get a lot of investment bankers in my class, right, or former or aspiring investment bankers. And a lot of times, what they'll say to me is that my course provides them with a skill set that others in their field just don't have from exactly the perspective that I just described. So I think that that's actually the point in terms of thinking about what this is all about. So thank you for that question.
Indeed, these are terrific questions, and they really, I think we always have an adage that if somebody's asking the questions, that means another five people are thinking the same thing. So thank you on behalf of the other four, Martin, for asking questions, and not just Martin, but others on the question and chat as well. These are useful, and I would say as a general note, when you're dealing with a program like this, which is effectively the equivalent of a half semester graduate school course, and again, it's not an exact science, but that's about what it is in terms of material. It really is are you in the position in your career, in your brain space, to want to absorb this, to want to, whether it's for refreshing or burnishing your credentials or knowledge, expanding your network a bit and interacting with some fellow learners and other executives, are you in a position to take advantage of it? And I would dare say if you're not in that position, maybe wait until you are. But if you are in that position, keep an open mind. And again, it's a nice way, again, for a different kind of investment than a full-fledged graduate program, and especially for people who are a little bit later on in their careers. You'll find many more peers in an executive program like this. There's a question here. I hate to say no, but I also want to be very honest here. The question is, do you get to keep it keep a UPenn email? So the answer is no. I know in some of the more expansive executive programs, one of the perks or benefits is people will get a lifelong forwarding address, a .edu forwarding address, which is a nice perk. That comes with the more comprehensive programs from Wharton Executive Education. This, as I said, this is a 6-week online course that is both a standalone program that you can take for all the reasons we've been discussing today, but also, again, it is an elective in several of Wharton's senior executive programs as well. So there are a number of paths to get to the content in this course. I just want to be mindful of time as we start to approach the last part of the hour, and so if you do have questions, this is a great. So there's another question. Are there online graduate degrees at UPenn? And so broadly speaking, yes. I will say that you are, and Professor Feldman and I have had a chance to say this on many occasions, you're living in a golden age of online and hybrid education opportunities. This program is new. I mean, just coming online, and you have many programs like that have launched in the last 4 or 5 years. I don't mean many M&A programs, but many executive programs and graduate level education programs, both in the degree and the certificate realms. And so it really gives you, the consumer, a chance to do your due diligence, as discussed here, but also to take what you want and really look. So yes, there are there are online degree programs in various, especially at the master's or graduate degree level. You will see a lot of that. You can look. I would go to the UPenn website, also the different websites of the different schools within UPenn, not just Wharton, but the other schools at the university. And you'll also see a variety of certificate and degree programs. Each one comes with its advantages and disadvantages, its syllabi, its professors. So again, the nice thing is there's a lot of good information out there. And make sure you get the best information you can, not just about this program, but any other program you're considering. Gilberto has a question about data rooms. Emily, I'll defer to you on that in the chat.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Dave, and thanks, Roberto. We talk about data rooms, of course, in the due diligence module. We don't do a super deep dive in it because it's a bit maybe more technical than kind of a, broad brush program on mergers and acquisitions might warrant. But we do talk about that in that particular module.
Fantastic. And again, a final call for questions, and we will let you get back to your busy days and in some cases days and afternoons and evenings, as we do have a truly global group on this call as we look at the final makeup of the roster. And a reminder that yes, the recording of this webinar will be distributed within 24 hours for those of you who are here live. For those of you who are watching on the recording already, we appreciate you taking the time to go through this with us. And if you do have any questions to follow up, especially questions about your individual journey that might, again, be more useful, you make sure you schedule a call with your program advisor. Again, you can see the QR code here. You had the link in the chat. You could also respond to the email that was used to sign you up here. There's one more question from Victor about areas to take a deep dive. I think the modules that are you can equate each of those modules with a deep dive. But Emily, I don't know if you have any closing comments on the areas where this goes deeper.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave, and thanks, Victor. Yeah, no, I think that's a great answer, and that's probably what I would have said as well, right? That each of the modules themselves are a deep dive into kind of the topic that was articulated. So, yeah, sort of I think that's the best way to put it.
So again, and that's really, I think that's a great way, Victor. I think you helped us to wrap up the session here because that's exactly what a 6-week program like this is going to do. It's taking these week-long deeper dives into these specific topic areas. Again, does it add that extra tool in your toolbox? Does it give you a bit of extra fluency or confidence in the conversation? Does it leave you with some additional skill sets? And is it a fun and engaging learning opportunity? All those are criteria that we look at when we design a program like this. And frankly, those are our goals for you as well. So again, with that, I will give Professor Feldman the last word, but I on behalf of all of us at Wharton Executive Education and Emeritus and all of us, everyone who works tirelessly behind the scenes to make a program like this come together, I want to wish you much luck and success in your education journey. And if that journey takes you to this program in an upcoming cohort, we look forward to welcoming you aboard. Make sure you get all the follow-up information from your program advisor, and we look forward to seeing you sometime in the future. Thanks again for your time today. Emily?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks everyone for being here and taking an hour out of your time to spend with us here. I hope this was useful in giving a sense of what this is about and sort of the thought process behind the program. Hope to see many of you enrolled in the course. Thanks, everybody.